Congrats on clicking this video. You're here for output. And output is ultimately the only thing that's going to solve your problems. Because right now, you notice that you have constraints with your output. You want something, and yet you can't achieve it. And you realize that you, to some extent, you, the person watching this video, is limiting your success. You might have a successful business, or you might not. But realistically speaking, you realize that something internally needs to change. Because fundamentally speaking, there's two facets to output. You can get something out of an asset that you've created in life, which ultimately can be a business generating you money as a standalone entity relative to you. So if you start a car wash business and you outsource everything and everyone, that business brings money in your pocket as the owner, for example. I run a 7-figure health optimization company that combines convenience, performance, science, and people's goals to streamline health for them so that they can change their output. So let's break output down. The parameters, luckily for output, are the same between you and I. Every single day, we have to fuel ourselves, so we have to put something in our body to keep ourselves going. We have to perform, so we either have to do that with physical endeavors or mental endeavors to survive. And we need to recover. So we need to sleep, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of our minds and our bodies. And these three things in unison create a cycle. And this cycle is the core dependency cycle of our lives. For the rest of our lives, we're going to have to fuel, perform, and recover, and that's never going to stop. So if we break down those three things by seeing where humanity is at with them and understanding them to the highest quality that we can, we'll be able to understand where our bottlenecks are with them. Just like in business, there's service delivery, marketing, and there's time when the business is off. And all of these intricate systems can easily be boiled down into these things. So let's break them down. The first thing that we need to remember with our fueling system is what's going inside the body. Now it's going to get a little complicated here because we can easily go down the rabbit hole of every single one of these intricacies that I'm going to point out. But the goal with this is not to get you confused. It's for you to understand the enormity of the problem that you and I have to solve on a day-to-day basis. So with our fuel system, we're talking about food and supplements. What to supplement is based on what our body is requiring based on its internal needs. So when we do blood work or gut testing, that will give us very accurate things to supplement. When it comes down to our food, we have to eat how we were designed to eat, and we can easily do that by going back 200, 300, 400 years and looking at the entire timeline of humans and what we've eaten and trying to get to as close as possible to that. So grass-fed, grass-finished, not the marketing labels themselves, but actually eating animals that can forage and that are free, eating foods that aren't sprayed with pesticides, not eating processed ingredients and things we wouldn't see 300 to 400 years ago, that sort of stuff. So that's our fuel pillar. The next pillar is performance. When it comes down to performance, we're the only mammals in existence gifted with self-regenerating cardio, which means that if we continue to walk, our system will find a way to continuously regenerate itself using our glycolytic system as well as our oxidative system. No other animal does that. If you chase a rabbit around in a circle, it'll eventually die from a heart attack, not because it's running, but because it can't sustain itself. So that system is a part of our physical system, the way that our body works in motion with our performance, so running, lifting, etc. That needs to be tapped into for us to feel good to some extent with our muscle mass, with our mental cognitive function, etc. On top of that, when it comes down to sitting down in front of a computer and being as dialed as possible, a lot of that involves healthy hormones, lack of inflammation, and just being able to solidify and have the body in a state where it's hyper efficient. And ultimately, a body that's hyper efficient means a body that is high in muscle mass, low in fat mass, and low in inflammation and residue. So low visceral fat and clogs around the entire system. So we've gone over fuel, we've gone over performance, recovery. When it comes down to recovery, it's pretty simple. It's sleep, sauna, steam room, and all of those things that help us restore ourselves properly. Not scrolling, not dopamine maxing, but actually taking time to give our body what it needs to fully recharge and start up the next day performing, fueling, and then recovering again, etc. So those three things, whether you like to admit it or not, whether I like to admit it or not, we have to fucking do those things as best as we can on a day-to-day basis because our body is the only mechanism that we have for achieving any sort of output in our reality. Without our body, without your brain and your body, you, by some extent, are limited. That's why you see obese people not being very successful. And that's why you see people that are also unfortunately born disabled not being very successful, because they're limited by their health. So ultimately, health comes before everything else for that sole core reason. That's not shitting on obese people or disabled people. It's just a fact so that you understand the enormity of the problem that is in front of your hands. Humans on a day-to-day basis are extremely negligent with this problem. They don't understand the concept enough and the enormity of the work they have to do to get that highest level of output out of themselves. So a business owner will want to scale a company and be super successful. And sure, you can get pretty damn far. Look at Bill Gates, look at Jeff Bezos, but eventually your body is going to tell you, hey, in order to get to this next level, in order to get to this next level of enlightenment, you need to take care of yourself first. And what taking care of yourself looks like means using science, systems, and teams so that you can handle your fuel, performance, and recovery without your direct input. Hiring people better than you to handle how you maximize output out of your body. That's fundamentally what OptiMobility does. We do science on the body. We hire doctors, geneticists, pro trainers, nutritionists, whoever you need to be able to implement and find how your goals are limiting how inflammation in your body is withholding your three systems from functioning in unison. And once your three systems are running fluidly, that's really where you're going to tap into that 0.0x% of consciousness, of growth, of success, because you're not dealing with residual inflammation. I had all of my silver fillings taken out from my teeth a week ago. And I had those fillings since I was 12. I had really bad teeth problems and decay because for whatever reason, I wasn't taught dental hygiene as a kid, or I didn't follow up with it. I was probably just a little shitbag. The amount of problems that these silver fillings caused onto me and my digestion and when I ran a race was unbelievable. They caused a shit ton of inflammation. And that's just one thing. Another thing and another problem that I had to deal with was my leg. It was severely cut up. There's the surgery. There's the line from here all the way. My entire leg was cut up because I had problems and botched operations when I was a kid. And I spent 18 years in active physiotherapy just solidifying the fact that I may or may not be able to walk again. I did half Ironman racing. I did natural bodybuilding. I biked up mountains. I've done all this shit to solidify and make sure that my recovery system, my mobility system, that's a part of my perform system was dialed, that there was no inflammation there, and I could depend on my body because, hey, just like you, I have a business to grow. I have shit I need to do. I'm hyper ambitious and I can't afford for my body to fail. And by being negligent on a day-to-day basis, that's exactly what we're doing. We're not understanding the enormity of how our bodies can fail on us. And so fundamentally speaking, we've covered three big things in this video. Our fuel, perform, and recover system. The one limitation with this information is actually putting it into motion. You'll hear guys like Huberman, you'll hear influencers talking about calories and all this bullshit, but at the end of the day, who's the person that has to put these things into motion? It's you and I. We have to be the ones to go out and cook and build the training plan and go to the gym and actually go to bed on time and actually go to the steam room and book that and do all of these things to get these three systems in motion running for us. And that's the difference. It's the difference between info and application, which is what OptiMobility handles. That's what we do for 7, 8, 9, and 10-figure founders. We put these things into motion for them. Because fundamentally speaking, if you don't have those things in motion, they just sit there, just like a blood test. You'll do a blood test and it sits there in your closet, not being put into work because the info does not translate into real world application. So when people go out and they buy and they hire peak performance coaches or coaches in general that spew like I am, but don't actually put anything into work, the whole thing falls flat on its face. And then you just go back to resorting to the shit that you were doing before you hired the coach after 6 to 12 months. And that cycle just repeats itself because the mechanism for how we handle our health as humans is not really good. It needs a lot of work. And that's exactly the problem that we're fixing. So if you're a 7, 8, or 9-figure founder, check the link down below for more information.